Imagine being a 16-year-old and throwing everything into your job of protecting the United Kingdom, defending the realm, making sure your fellow citizens are safe and secure. You serve 20 years. You expect to be rewarded for your success and your service. Instead, you leave the armed forces. There is little or no help given to you. You're left to your own devices. You lose all your structure. You struggle with PTSD. You sink into a life of drug addiction, alcohol dependency, and homelessness. This is not fact. This is not fiction, sorry. This is fact. This is the United Kingdom in 2026, where we abandon people who protect this country in favour of people who illegally invade this country. The way we treat veterans in this country is totally and utterly unacceptable. Let's look at some statistics now. Last year, the government spent £2.1 billion on accommodation for illegal migrants. At the same time, it spent just £8 million on housing for veterans. That is just 0.3% of the budget spent on illegal migrants. 1 in 400 veterans are homeless. We don't even have an efficient programme to house veterans. The government's helpline, Operation Fortitude, is routinely letting veterans down with their appalling wait times, and staggeringly, it refuses to house any veterans with a partner. That is ludicrous. And the real irony is this. The government is importing and housing people who often do not share our values or respect our culture, whilst failing those who have actually fought for this country and everything it represents. And meanwhile, there are some illegal migrants who have even fought against our country. That is utterly shameful. We seem to have a government that is uncomfortable with British culture, with British history, and British values, and nowhere is that clearer than in the way they treat our veterans. Now, if we look at the United States for comparison, there is a very stark difference in the way that veterans are respected and looked after. Take veterans' mental health, for example. Around 17% of veterans report having mental health issues like PTSD after their service. Now, in the United States, roughly £5,000 is spent annually per veteran on mental health support. And yet here in Britain, that figure is closer to £1,000 per head. That is not because we can't afford to do better, it is because our priorities are wrong. Now, people leaving the armed forces often experience a very difficult transition from a highly structured military environment to civilian life. The challenges they face tend to be interconnected rather than isolated, and this can affect personal well-being, family stability, and long-term economic security. Veterans often experience problems getting a job and also keeping that job. Many veterans struggle to explain their experience in terms that employees understand, even though they possess strong leadership, technical and teamwork skills. Some find only lower paid or temporary work, particularly if their military role has no direct civilian equivalent. And many veterans struggle with service-related injuries, which range from visible injuries to chronic pain, to hearing loss, to traumatic brain injury and PTSD. Veterans often face long wait times to see clinicians, and they struggle to get the help they so desperately need. And the transition to Civvy Street is complex, and it's very challenging as well. Veterans often struggle with a loss of identity and a loss of sense of purpose. Military service provides a clear mission, a rank, and a sense of belonging. And losing this can leave veterans feeling directionless, isolated, and depressed. The strain on families is often overwhelming. Whilst being reunited with families is something that most have longed for, the reality of being stuck at home means there is a much higher risk of divorce or family breakdown. Some veterans struggle with anger and impulse control. Coping mechanisms include turning to drugs and alcohol to cope with pain and trauma. Now, given all of the above, you would expect there to be dedicated help and support to aid the transition to civilian life. But access to this is uneven, and it's very dependent on where you live, and that is simply not good enough. Reform UK believes that the way a country treats its veterans is a measure of its character. This government and the last government should be ashamed of how they have neglected our veterans. Reform UK is underpinned by our three values of family, community, and country. And today we celebrate and put our armed forces community front and centre stage. And that is why I am delighted to launch our Veterans for Reform group here today. Reform UK is here to say clearly and unapologetically, those who have served this country should always come first. We will fight for proper housing, for real mental health support, and a system that actually works for veterans rather than against them. And today marks the beginning of that commitment. Under a Reform UK government, your service will not be forgotten. So thank you to every veteran in this room and also every veteran watching at home. We are forever grateful for your service to our country. Your duty, your loyalty, and your bravery acts as a poignant reminder of the fundamental British values at the heart of our national identity, the ones our party will fight to preserve. We carry a very heavy responsibility to ensure that those who have served our country are treated with the respect, the care, and the dignity that they deserve. And we will ensure that always happens. Every conflict over the past 3 decades, completing over 400 operations. Now, after cancer treatment forced him to leave the military, he founded Pilgrim Bandits, a social enterprise helping military veterans with their transition into civilian employment. Please welcome the President of Veterans for Reform, Matt Hellier.
Ladies and gentlemen, veterans, thank you for attending this most special meeting. Who am I? It's just been said who I am. But number one, I'm a veteran. I served in the Parachute Regiment and the Special Air Service, and I served 25 years. And at the end of my service, I suffered from cancer. I had no longer a service and a brotherhood and a sisterhood to look to. What was told to me when I suffered from cancer and I was diagnosed was that I had to go and seek help from the NHS. Those statements are not good enough in this country today. Those statements are not good enough. 10 years ago, I have fought on every battlefield since the 1980s, and I still serve this nation now in some of the battlefields, helping their social enterprises and looking after other nations to ensure that they can flourish like we are, or we will, once reform are in. So why have we created this wonderful organisation? We have created this to create policy from bottom up. After 25 years in the military, I just see policy coming from top down, and we're missing the key aspects of what it means to us as serving soldiers and as veterans. Our voices are not being heard. But now is the time that we will change this. You now have a chance to change this country and change the way in which this country and its successive governments look at veterans. There is 1.8 million of us out here. And I can tell you, not many of us voted on the last elections. But on the next elections, what we want is 1.8 million veterans and their wonderful families to vote for this party, knowing that this party has your backs. So, Veterans for Reform. We want to get around the country. We want to create a group that is dedicated to be your voice in the political forum. We want you to change and create policies that are worthwhile. And we want you to take back your country, because it's your country that you fought for. Our aim is pretty simple. And being in the military, we keep it simple, stupid. No British military veteran will be left behind. No British military veteran will be left behind. We have some key objectives. I want to champion veterans' rights. I want to make sure that the housing, the medical facilities, the mental health treatment are good enough for you guys that fought for it. We want to make sure that the Armed Forces Covenant that is in place, it is set in law and is set in stone, and it reflects what we believe and what we deserve. At the moment, it's a pretty weak document. It doesn't look after me, it doesn't look after you, and it certainly doesn't look after our families. Our families are the last on the list for housing. Our families are the last on the list for the NHS. Our families have no support on the mental health. But it is our families that keep us fighting. It is our families that support us when we're in the A&E, suffering from a complex injury that a doctor does not understand. So we must look at this, we must revise, reflect on what we bring, and we must have these options in place to ensure that we can push forward and we can make this country great again. I want around the clock, 24/7 assistance for anyone. 14% of suicides, the percentage of suicides this year has risen by 14%. Some of my friends are on that list, and it breaks my heart that we are letting those down. There's people in this room that are suffering from mental health. And I seem to feel that the military is not the problem. It's the way we grew up. I grew up in a council estate in South London. By the age of 13, I was fending for myself. We join the military for a reason. We join the military because it is our family. It gives us support. When we leave the military, that's when the problems start. We go back to what we used to be. We need that camaraderie. We need that support. And that support comes from being 100%, 24/7 available for us. Why are we special? You know, people ask me, why are we special? Well, you and your comrades have left blood and limbs on battlefields, fighting for Queen and now King and country. That's why you're special, because you've signed on the dotted line and you've given your all in the name of this country. That support needs to be key. We have Op Resolve, Op Restore and Op Courage in place. It has huge waiting lists. The NHS doctors that run it are already overworked and underpaid, as we know. We've come up with a system, or we're working with people, with enterprises, to ease that system. And I want to work with outside agencies and charities to provide a bespoke service for our veterans. It has been done before. And in the UK Special Forces, there is the model that works, that we have a private donor that puts a private healthcare policy together. And you know what? It doesn't cost billions. It doesn't cost £7 million a day like we are spending housing illegal immigrants. That's what we need. And that's what we've got to work towards. What is key at the moment and what is in the news is the prosecution of veterans. Especially Op Banner. I served 4 tours in Northern Ireland, and I understand what it means and the complex cases that we faced. On my second tour in Northern Ireland, my patrol was hit by a pressure pad. And one of my members lost both legs in Kappa in East Tyrone. I was on the point that day, and I put the tourniquets on his legs and hopefully give him a future and saved his life. Now, it's me and it's my friends that are in the dock. We're not getting prosecuted yet. These are civil cases that should not have even got to court. These cases need to be quashed. They need to be quashed, and we've seen the leader of this party put out a huge statement that prosecutions for military veterans will be pardoned. But it's also the ongoing cases that we will look at, and we will put in a robust law to ensure that you guys do not have to face a law court, a civil court. Because do you know what? You done what you were told. And I don't mean that. I mean that you followed the rules of engagement. And I see my friends in the dock. I don't see generals, and I don't see lawyers in the dock, because they are the people. They are the people that wrote the laws. They are the people that enforced the laws that we followed. And now it's us that are facing a criminal, a civil court. We need to take the state to court. You don't take the individual. You don't take a private soldier from 1 Queen's on his tour in 1972. He followed stringently the rules of engagement. This is not being bound around enough. We follow the rules of engagement. We follow the law of the land, always, of that time. We cannot have a new law that now dictates to us whether we are wrong or right. That law was set in stone back in the 70s and 80s and revised. The new law that come in the mid-2000s are the law that we are now facing. It's diabolical. It's unjust. This party is the only party to make the bold statements. We must get behind veterans' reform. We must have your voice and we must have your vote if you want things to change. My last key objective is something that I sat down with Chris Parry, who is our honorary president. Chris is a Falklands War hero. Chris has written lots in defence. He is absolutely key to this movement. But he highlighted our financial problems. The government of today is looking at your pensions, your war pensions, your service pensions. They are the next thing to be hit because this government does not like veterans. You've seen it. There is no law. There is no immunity. They are after us in every single way. We're going to safeguard your pensions. But what also makes me sick is that this government has has put in place a taxation on a death in service pension to our families and our siblings. So if you die in service, the meagre sums of money that you receive is being taxed by this government. They want every bit of you. Our families cannot afford that. We have service families now that are on the breadline, that are feeding themselves through food banks, that are coming to our charities. In this country, in this day and age, this is unacceptable. That is your money. That is the veterans' money. That is the families of the veterans' money to allow them to survive. So remember, we're never going to leave you behind. No British military veteran in this party will be left behind. Right? You served your country. It's about time your country served you. Thank you.
Well, our next speaker is a woman who has been a formidable Member of Parliament since her dramatic election in May of last year. Since entering Parliament, she has been a powerful voice for our servicemen and women and has spoken out strongly against Labour's outrageous Troubles Bill, which strips away protection from prosecutions from our brave veterans. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Pochin.
Good morning, everybody, and to those behind as well. It's such an honour and a privilege to be here today for the launch of Veterans for Reform. Having been brought up in a military household myself, I am keen to take every opportunity to support and speak up for all veterans. Now, I know I have not served myself, and that makes me feel very humble standing here in front of you all. But my father served in the British Army, in the Gloucesters, and it feels entirely natural for me to use the platform I now have to advocate in every way I can for the well-being of our brave veterans. We need to instill and restore a pride in our armed forces in this country, as other countries do, America, Australia, Canada. We need to make sure that we cherish and value the contribution made to our country by our armed forces. And we need to allow the citizens of this great country to openly show their national pride by flying our flag without recriminations from woke councils. We need to do so much more in this country to educate our young people as to why they should be proud of our veterans and to understand the sacrifice that veterans make defending this great country and their democracy. Young people need to be taught about military history and national pride. What is taught? What is taught in the classroom today is what is spoken by the leaders of tomorrow. They must be taught that without your sacrifice, they could not freely speak their mind, freely demonstrate on our streets, or be free to challenge the status quo. And it is not just the ultimate sacrifice of giving one's life. It is so often the impact on mental health and life-changing injuries that goes unrecognised. I often reflect whether the generation growing up today, if ever tested by conflict, would find within themselves the same courage, sense of duty, and willingness to serve in the way those in this room did. At present, our military is significantly strained, with an estimated 70,000 troops only assessed as full-time trained strength. And I don't actually believe that means ready to go into battle. That is office workers and everything else. And to put that into perspective, that is roughly the same as the number of illegal immigrants that have entered this country on small boats since this Labour government came to power. That is a frightening statistic, particularly when many of those illegal immigrants are young, fighting-age men from a culture quite different to our own and with a different set of social values. This comes at a time when our ability to deter aggression and defend democratic principles is more important than ever. Now, successive governments have not put enough money into our defence budget. The countries of Europe have been forced to reconsider how much they contribute to NATO and to the funding required to be the presence we need to be to stand firm in the face of hostile regimes. We face superpowers that want to sabotage us, that want to spy on us. We face regimes that want to see the destruction of the West. I listen to this government say time and time again in Parliament that national security is the primary objective and function of any government. And yet we know that those are only words until we see real increases in investment in our defence budget. Defence spending is currently 2.3% of GDP, or £66 billion. This Labour government has pledged to increase defence spending to 3.5% by 2036. But John Healey has just recently said that this is only an ambition. Well, we know what that means. And we know we have a recruitment problem. How do we attract young men into our armed forces when they can't be sure that the actions they take on the battlefield, following orders, will not come back as prosecutions in the future? How can they be sure that all their training, their loyalty to their regiment, their monarch, the country, and with the instilled discipline of following orders without question, will only see them in court at a future date? A recent letter to the government, written by a group of generals, said that for a soldier today, the enemy is not just what is in front of them, but is now the lawyers behind them. That is such a powerful phrase, such powerful words. And I speak often in Parliament with a strong voice and a true sense of conviction on how wrong this new Troubles Bill is being introduced by the Labour government. The Legacy Act of 2023 is not perfect. But this Troubles Act will see vexatious prosecutions start up once again. Prosecutions of our brave veterans who should be enjoying retirement. This government is more interested in deferring to the European Convention of Human Rights than it is to preventing you from being unfairly prosecuted. Well, what about your human rights? They will see immunity given to terrorists, yet reopen inquiries into our brave veterans. This is no way to treat those who would give their lives to defend their country. Terrorists do not deserve human rights. A Reform government would repeal this Troubles Act and ensure that no British veteran ever faced prosecution for simply following orders. Now, my father, my dad, he did 3 tours of Northern Ireland, and I grew up in a household watching the horrors unfold on the news of the latest IRA attack. I remember how devastated my dad was when Lord Mountbatten was blown up. I remember how difficult it was to watch the Queen shake hands with Martin McGuinness. I can't imagine what it was like for my mum for all those years at home with 2 children, never knowing whether her husband would be blown up or shot, captured, tortured. Now, my dad, like all of you, I'm sure, didn't share the horrors of what he experienced. But he, like you, would have died for his country. I am so proud of my father, and of all of you, and of all of our armed forces. And as veterans, you need protecting. You need a government that prioritises you. We know that this Northern Ireland Troubles Bill will, in time, become an Iraq bill or an Afghanistan bill or whatever else is facing us down the line. But it is not just from the courts that we need to protect you. 2,180 veterans were assessed as homeless in 2024-25, an increase of 17% in 3 years. And several charities actually estimate this figure at as many as 4,000. We need to make sure that no veteran is ever homeless, lonely, hungry, or in fact needs anything. Under a Reform government, veterans will be made a priority on housing lists. We've talked this morning about the fact that over 1 in 3 veterans struggle with mental health problems. And with around 1.8 million veterans, that's a lot of men who need access to mental health support. Operation Courage is a start, treating around 7,000 veterans a year, but clearly we need to go much further. And many have no access to services to help them. But a reform government will ensure that access to mental health services for veterans is a priority. Now, before I finish, I'd like to share some of my fondest memories of army life. Going to the NAFI. I remember going to the NAFI with my mum. The Christmas parties for the army children were amazing, although I seem to remember my dad and his colleagues enjoying those parties, I think, a bit too much. I remember sitting on the bar in the mess, eating curry at a very, very young age, and I just loved it. I remember playing with my brother in the back of an army lorry. Oh, I remember your ration packs with the boiled sweets. Oh my God, I loved that. And seeing my dad in his mess kit looking so handsome. What woman wouldn't fall for one of you guys in your mess kits? I would have... In fact, I've got a picture of my dad in his mess kit standing next to Lord Mountbatten by my bed. I would have been a great army wife, I think, but sadly, none of you ever asked me, so I ended up marrying a builder. There we go. Sorry, Johnny, if you're listening to that. I love you dearly. But to conclude, I'm proud of this country, and I'm proud of our armed forces, and I'm so proud of our veterans, and I'm truly humbled to be in your presence. And I will do everything I can, if I am part of a reformed government, to make you a priority. Through our new Veterans for Reform group, we will listen to you and we will represent you with the gratitude and the respect you deserve. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Sarah. I'm going to ask Matt Hellier to join me back on stage now, but also joining Matt is a man who has taken a very serious interest in the welfare of our veterans, supporting those who have served our country for a very long time indeed. He's consistently spoken up for the armed forces community, he's championed the Armed Forces Covenant, and he has worked to ensure that those who put their lives on the line for Britain are treated with the respect and the dignity that they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with Matt Hellier, the Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, Danny Kruger.
Good to be sat here. Danny, would you like to just give us a brief talk about what you've been doing and how hard you've been fighting for veterans?
So I'm the MP for East Wiltshire, and what that means is Bulford, Larkhill, Tidworth, Perham Down. Anyone know these places? Okay. Anyone from these places right now? I need to see if I've got any voters here. A couple, all right. You nearly wiped me out at the last election when I was standing for the Conservatives. So we need to do that better. Need to do better next time. We need to get reform in East Wiltshire. So I'm the MP there. I've never been a soldier. Dr. Johnson said every man feels worse for himself for never having been a soldier or a sailor, and that is me. And so it's not just because I haven't worn the King's uniform I feel uncomfortable. It's just because I don't know what the hell you're talking about half the time. All your acronyms. I mean, what is it? Orbats and your C2s and MDOs and all this. What is all that about? What's an Orbat, Matt?
An Orbat is what we got here, and this Orbat is going to vote for you guys in the next election.
Okay. All right, very good. Very good. All right. So very quickly, my role in reform, when I came over from the Conservatives last year, Nigel asked me to lead our preparation for government work. So we've got a huge challenge on. And the work of our military, our defence, our security system is, in a sense, the heart of it. And if we can't get that right, then nothing else matters. And it's not good enough just to say we're going to pledge more money for defence. Obviously, we need that. We need that very badly. But the defence system is broken at the moment, as we know. And the way we treat our veterans goes to the heart of that. And you've heard this morning some of those statistics. So my job is to work with Nigel and our other colleagues and with Matt, and crucially now with Veterans for Reform, to develop the plans for how we're going to organise ourselves in government, ahead of government, so that when we go in, we have a plan. Nigel's not just going to walk into number 10 and the general say, "Welcome, Prime Minister, here are your orders," which is what other Prime Ministers have had. He's going to say to the generals, "Right, this is the plan we've worked out." And that's going to take a lot of work. So, Matt, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you all for the help you're going to give us in developing our defence policy and, crucially, working out how we put defence people and their families at the heart of our mission. So that's what I need your help for.
So, all that, we have a few questions. Some people have put some questions to us, and I'd like them just to raise the hand. Rudy, is it Rudy Kenyon?
Kennedy, over here.
Rudy, you've got a question that you want to pose.
Good morning. The question I have is, how will veterans' concerns be addressed in Parliament by reform before the next general election? And to put it simply, what can and will we do now, and not just what we plan to do in the future?
Thank you. Thank you. So listen, we're only a little party in Parliament. We're growing. You might have noticed. We're getting there. We're catching up on the SNP. That's my target. But we're still only a little half a row of MPs. But we make a lot of noise. You notice that pretty much every PMQs, if you watch that, is about reform. So they're listening to us. And what we say, others follow. And there are things that we can do. I mean, Nigel Farage basically saved the Chagos Islands last week. Did you appreciate that? I don't know how he did it. I don't know what he did, but he went to Davos. Lots of people said, "What are you doing going to Davos?" Anyway, he went to Davos, and we got the Chagos Islands back. So we can work behind the scenes as part of the answer to your question, and we can work in Parliament to make the case for veterans, and we can shame them, and we do that regularly, put them on the spot, and put the Conservatives on the spot as well. So that's part of the job. But the other part of the job, sir, is to do what we can in local government, and that is really significant when it comes to veteran support. And I just want to mention Layla Cunningham, who's here this morning. She is our candidate for the Mayor of London, and we don't have a mayoral election until 2028. But we have local elections in London in May. And what Layla's has been telling me this morning is if the councils that we win, we can introduce an immediate policy to change the prioritisation on housing. So at the moment, if you're an asylum seeker or an illegal immigrant, you get to this country, you claim asylum, you go to the top of the housing list. Them's the rules. Those are the rules we're going to change. But they're the rules that operate right now. But in local government, they treat veterans, ex-forces people, as usually just single men. And a single man goes to the bottom of the housing queue. So much for the military covenant. So what we will do, what Layla will do, working with our local government colleagues in the councils that we win from May, will be to change that prioritisation immediately.
And Danny, I think it's up to us in this room and the wider audience to get the statistics and the real-time information to the councillors so they can feed up to Layla and our future MPs, so they know what the state of affairs are. They know what the problems are firsthand. And that's what this is all about.
Yep.
Adam Knights, I think we have a question. Adam or Mark Brown? Mark? Oh, there we go.
Microphone's coming.
Thank you. Thank you. So, cheers, Matt. I just want to ask a question. Will Reform commit to full mental health assessments for veterans on discharge from service?
Right, Mark, we've talked about what is going on at the moment, where when we all joined the military, we had one point of entry. Right? You had stringent medical tests, we had stringent vetting tests, we've done the fitness tests. Now, when I speak to all of us and our younger community as well, they're leaving the military, okay? They're leaving the military in a number of different hosts, whether it's an early release, whether it's a medical discharge, or whether it's the end of their service. Not many of these guys and girls, are going through the stringent medical procedures that should happen. Now, I like the basis that Australia and the protocol that Australia follow. Okay, when you leave the military, it predicts what your injuries are going to be. So if you served a full time, it would predict that you were probably going to have a knee replacement before the normal age for knee replacements, because you've run around with lots of weight. It understands that you have gone through complex mental health situations, okay? And it will already predict the treatment. So you will leave, and I'm not saying this is what we're going to do, I'm saying this is what should be done as a base level, what we should use as an example. When you leave, you get a medical card, something that I'm really looking into. So you get a medical card for private healthcare, okay? You get a lump sum in your hand that predicts that you are going to be incapacitated, okay? You are going to need assistance. So some of you guys here who are disabled veterans, and close to my heart as I run a disabled veterans charity, is that you get a lump sum, but there's nothing, there's not much money. But who is looking after you in 20, 30 years' time? That money doesn't last that long, and the payment process that we get, we have to go through a court of law just to get some sort of compensation. Now that costs us millions of pounds, but it also costs the government millions of pounds. And more importantly, us as taxpayers, we're the ones that are paying for this. So we shouldn't be paying for that. We need to look at this process in detail and come up with an answer. And that's something Veterans for Reform will be looking into. As I said before, you deserve better. You deserve the best. So hopefully that answers your question, Mark. We are looking at things. You will get a better service without a doubt under reform. We've got JJ Adams. JJ.
I'm third-generation military across all the generations. And when I left the military, I left within months of my father, and he'd served 40 years. When we eventually grouped at home, there was me, my mother, and my father. And my mother basically had been in the military her whole life, though she never had a medal or an ID card. We basically melted down, all of us. My father had no role, I had no role, my mother had no role as well. I want to know what you're going to do for the whole family, because it's not just us and the partners, but it's the parents, it's the brothers, it's the siblings. There are huge ripple effects across families as well as communities. It's not just us that needs the support. I hate that expression, even though I've never been one. I hate that expression, I'm just a wife. You are not just a wife. Please don't say that. Because it means You've just said that my mother was just a wife, my grandmothers were just wives, my aunt was just a wife, and my brother's wife is just a wife. It's not acceptable. It's not
unacceptable. And without our family support, children, wives, husbands, mums, dads, we wouldn't be here today. They're the people that pick up the pieces, make sure that we are fed, clothed, and we can go to battle. So the statistics that are telling us now, and I'll hand over to Danny to talk a little bit, but the stats are saying that service families are the very last in the queue for NHS. They're the very last in the queue for social housing. Now, that to me is fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong. So it's something that is hugely close to my heart. I lost a son 2 years ago who looked after me, supported us. So very close to my heart, and this will be addressed without a doubt. But Danny, what's your thoughts?
Thanks. Well, thanks, Matt. Thank you for saying that. And, ma'am, thank you for what you've done and for what your family have done. And I'd say a couple of things. One is just to focus for a moment on the veteran himself or herself who's coming out, because what the whole family needs is a future for that person. And it is extraordinary how many veterans come out of the forces and don't make it successfully into Civvy Street, struggle to gain employment. We've heard about the mental health challenges, public services. We're going to do everything we can in that space. But there's a big employment challenge, as we know. And what's extraordinary is when you consider who these people are, these are seriously employable, seriously experienced people who've got used to working in teams, understand what it is to deliver, have multiple skills, multiple interpersonal skills, which are so important. So what is the problem? And part of the problem is employers don't know how to relate and how to identify and how to support veterans who come in through recruitment. And we're going to do what we can to help educate employers more. And we ourselves, as government, of course, are major employers. And a big mission that Reform has is to grow the parts of the public sector that need to grow. We're going to shrink a lot of it too, don't worry. We're going to make major headcount cuts across the civil service and across a whole bunch of the parts of the bureaucracy. But there are parts of the public sector that need to grow, and the police are one. Prison service, border force, these are roles where ex-military are really well suited, and we're going to prioritise veterans, particularly for the 30,000 new police officers that we're going to recruit. So there will be jobs. And then the other thing we want to do, and this is, I think, goes to the heart of your question, it's about the military community. It's recognising that we're more than individuals, right? All of us anyway, but the military know that most of all. And as you've said, madam, the home front, the family behind the soldier, is what makes him or her able to fight. So we recognise that. And one thing I've noticed in my constituency over recent years is an improvement in the what they call military-civilian relations. So, the old model of the military living behind the wire and not really being part of the community they're in, that is changing, I think, for the better. You've got the rotations are getting longer, so people are based more in a place and they get to know the wider community. That is really helpful when they come out. And I think that's helpful for the families as well. So I think just integrating communities and military during service is going to be helpful for families. And then lastly, we talk about the military covenant. I'd be really interested in suggestions from Veterans for Reform about how we can broaden the covenant, not just to focus it on what it's supposed to be there for, which is ensuring that service personnel get treated properly and are not disadvantaged because of their service, but that applies properly to families. So how can we actually broaden the covenant, deepen it, make it more specific to the challenge of families, and ensure that, as you say, people who have served, whether in uniform or behind the soldier or the sailor or the airman, are properly honoured by our country. That is our mission. Thank you.
Great. Just labour on that point. As a small charity, the Pilgrim Bandits, we recognise service families, and we give them the exact same benefits that we do for veterans, for their husbands and wives. So that is one option that we can do. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Armed Forces Covenant. We have, is it Mark Henry? Mark Henry. Mark, where are we? At the back there.
Thank you. Will reform stick with the military covenant, or will you replace it with something else better? What would be included in it?
Shall I quickly have a go? Because I think, Matt, I mean, in a sense, that's for us all to determine. And I think this is an amazing gathering, by the way. I mean, all credit to you, Matt, and to the organisers. I want to say that. And just quickly, I mean, Veterans for Reform. I mean, there's going to be a lot of us, and it's brilliant. But we're doing this across across the population as well, all these different groups. So this is how we're going to make our policy, is through these special interest groups, as we call them. We've got farmers for reform, lawyers for reform, all the different professions. So that's a question for you. What do we need to do to improve it? I mean, one thought, and it was prompted by what you were saying, Matt, about the role of charities. I think that we need the NHS, we need benefits, we need the public sector, big government to do its job properly. But let's not pretend that can ever make up for the crucial role that communities themselves, and particularly the military charities, play, and the regimental charities as well, are at the heart of it. So the big national ones, SAFA and the rest of them, do great work. The regimental charities are vital, and the local ones too. And I wonder whether we can broaden the military covenant to have more of an explicit commitment to supporting this kind of civil society, the charity sector, that itself is so crucial to supporting individual veterans and their families, because, big government isn't going to be the answer to these complex social challenges that individuals and their families face. But a charity can be. Charity made up themselves by veterans. So I think rather than saying this is about what government can do, which is the sort of classic left-wing way of thinking about it, well-meaning and necessary, obviously, to get government to do its job, but what can society do as well? And so I think building that into the covenant more explicitly might be part of the answer. But as I say, let's all talk and work that out. That's a process for policy development over the next couple of years.
The covenant needs our help. The covenant as it is, I don't think is in a good place at the moment. As a CEO of a military charity, we get no help. We get no help from the government. And we get no help from the government, actually. There are grants out there, but the grant system goes to the big charities who are members of COBSIO, and the military community will know that, is the Federation of Military Charities. But it leaves out the small charities, which are absolutely key in our communities. Small charities are part of your community. They are the ones that have been formed from the wives, the husbands, the parents of the soldiers that are injured or have died. And they are absolutely key as part of our community to spreading the word, making sure that all the veterans, the ones that don't want to be put in the limelight, are helped. And the issue of finance, I sort of touched on it on my speech, needs to be revised. Okay, it needs to be faster, and everyone in this room understands the painful process it is trying to get any assistance out of any of the large charities. And it's not the charity's fault. It's the processes that have been put in place that they must follow. We must get this. It must be in a timely manner, and it must be helping, because I 100% think that there are friends of mine that are no longer here who have committed suicide because they couldn't get the access to the charity or the organisation that they should. And in fact, there is a harrowing statistic that says that many, I think it's 2% of all veterans that died actually had a response from the charities. So we must look at this. This is a priority. We must be timely. We must get this money and assistance out to the smaller charities and to our veteran community.
I don't know what this sign means. It's a military sign, but I'm getting it from the side. I think Matt, it may be time to make way for the main event.
Means tea break for me.
All right. Okay.
No. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Hopefully we've answered some of your questions, but you can always come back. Grab us when we're going to have a pint, a bacon roll, and really grab us and, get those questions to us. We are now here to stay. We're going to be in your communities. So you're part of Veterans for Reform. And like I said, you served your country. Now it's time this country served you. But make sure we vote with our feet and we get up and we put reform on the map, because this is the only party that is helping veterans. Thank you, mate.
Well, our final speaker is a man who needs no introduction. From the very start of his political career, he has stood up for the interests of our veterans and of our country. He has a very deep respect for our armed forces, and I can tell you, he has a huge passion for military history. He's a man who believes in putting this country first and honouring all of you who serve this great country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, MP.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that wonderful, warm welcome. I'm proud to be here today at the launch of Veterans for Reform, and I can tell from the energy, the enthusiasm, and the speed with which every single seat this morning was taken, leaving a big waiting list, I can tell that we're going to turn this into a massive organisation that stands up and fights for the rights of all of our military veterans. None of them ever should be left behind. And the need for this is very great, because we have a government who, whilst they talk about defence, frankly, are doing little about it. Apart, of course, from not just giving away the Chagos Islands and the military base at Diego Garcia, which for our vital American allies is their single most important base anywhere in the world outside of America. No, he's not just giving it away. He's paying them to take off us what is rightfully ours. We have a government led by human rights lawyers, a government prepared to bow down to some vague concept of international law administered by foreign courts, and a government that I believe doesn't have a patriotic bone in its body. These people are not with us. And of course, the prosecutions continue, not just of people who did their job in very, very tense, difficult and dangerous circumstances in Northern Ireland up to half a century ago, but now they're going for our special forces. Now they're after the SAS, for virtually any action that took place in Afghanistan or Iraq. The results of this are catastrophic. I have met face to face some of the men who are facing this misery. I have spoken to former commanders of both the SBS and the SAS, and they tell me the result on recruitment is literally catastrophic. Our armed forces are something we should be immensely proud of. Our armed forces are something the rest of the world looks up to. Our armed forces, in conjunction, particularly with the Americans and our other close allies, are one of the most important contributions we have to make to any defence alliance. And yet, under this government, they are under serious threat and serious assault. But this isn't new. This isn't just this government. Because frankly, if you look back at 14 years of Conservative government, what you see is promise after promise, for example, on the defence budget. And yet at the end of those 14 years, despite the fact the world is undoubtedly a more dangerous place than it's been for many, many decades, at the end of that 14 years, they were spending less on defence in percentage terms than the Gordon Brown government was 14 years before. And the refusal to stand up for the rights of veterans is what led to what I think was the very principled resignation of Johnny Mercer MP as Veterans Minister. He said, enough is enough, and resigned his job. And don't we need more people in politics with that level of courage, belief, and conviction? Well, in the end, they did put some legislation in place, but it was legislation, frankly, that was never destined to work for reasons I'll come to in a short while. But I want to say this. Never again must there be a case like that of Dennis Hutchins. Dennis Hutchins hounded through the courts, arrested at 5 o'clock. I mean, a man in his mid-70s arrested at 5 o'clock in the morning for carrying out his duty in, as I've said already, those difficult, dangerous and tense environments that we faced in Northern Ireland. Dennis Hutchins hounded until the day he died, whilst every IRA terrorist faces no prospect of prosecution whatsoever. I am pleased that we have peace in Northern Ireland, but we're beginning to see that some of the surrenders that were made from the Belfast Agreement and onwards by the Blair government have led to this ridiculous situation. If we're going to absolve those who potentially were terrorists 50 years ago, the very least we can do is to absolve not just the memory of Dennis Hutchins, but all those now and in the future who may go through this process. And to that end, I promise you that a Reform government will end all of these vexatious claims taken against our veterans from conflict after conflict. And for those who've been found guilty under very dubious codes of the Human Rights Act, we will grant a royal pardon of mercy on their names. And I have a feeling that ranged against us, we have the metropolitan elites. Ranged against us, we have the Human Rights Brigade. Yeah, I'm not too keen on them either, I've got to tell you. By the way, I did polish my shoes to come here today. I hope you've all noticed. They're ranged against us, but I'll tell you increasingly who is with us. The silent, decent majority of law-abiding people in this country. They know the difference between right and wrong, and we're going to make sure, through the strength of this organisation, they clearly, loudly and consistently hear our voice, and many, many more will come to our support. But it won't just be the silent majority. We will even get more political figures, more public figures standing up and defending what we are fighting for. And one of those figures is with us today. Oh. Trouble is, the last time I did this, I said, please enter stage right, Robert Jenrick. Nothing. I thought perhaps he changed his mind. And then he put some music on in the intermission. So I'll try it another time. Somebody who's reached high office in the cabinet, reaching up to the rank of Home Secretary, but was there during those years and saw the betrayal of both our current and our former military, and now has the courage of her, that's a clue, and now has the courage of her convictions to come and stand with me on a reform platform and speak to you today, because it's about time, isn't it? It's about time the establishment owned up to what they got wrong. She was witness to much of us. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the stage former Home Secretary Suella Braverman. Oh. Right, it's all yours. I will depart.
Thank you, Nigel, for that wonderful introduction. I feel like I've come home. I feel like I've come home. Thank you. And I've got to say, what an honour it is to be with all of you. Gallant, noble, brave servicemen and women. You've put your country first. You've sacrificed. You've given us everything. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for the United Kingdom. Now, you didn't do that for applause. You didn't serve your country for reward. You did it because you believe passionately in the greatness of our country. You believe fiercely in its valor. You're not apologizing for our history. You're proud of the vast contribution that Britain has made to civilization for centuries. And you have put your lives on the line in phenomenal acts of bravery, time and time again, ultimately because of love. Love of our dear country. And it's because of that same love that I am standing here today. I too share that love of our country. I inherited it from my parents. They came to this country with nothing in the 1960s. My dad wasn't even 20 when he was kicked out of Kenya and came to the United Kingdom. My mother was an 18-year-old girl when she was recruited by the NHS in Mauritius. They came here and they devoted their lives to the service of this country because of gratitude. gratitude for the stability and the opportunity that this country gave them. And when a country gives you everything, like it has done me, you owe it loyalty. And loyalty demands honesty. And honesty compels me to say this today. Britain is indeed broken. She is suffering. She is not well. Immigration is out of control. Our public services are on their knees. People don't feel safe. Our youngsters are leaving the country for better futures elsewhere. We can't even defend ourselves, and our nation stands weak and humiliated on the world stage. So we stand at a crossroads. We can either continue down this route of managed decline to weakness and surrender, or we can fix our country, reclaim our power, rediscover our strength. I believe that a better Britain is possible. And because I believe that is possible, today I'm announcing that I resign the Conservative whip. Done it. I resigned the Conservative and my party membership, a party membership of 30 years. It's gone. It's over today. And because I believe with my heart and soul that a better future is possible for us, I am joining Reform UK. And I will sit as the Member of Parliament for Fareham and Waterlooville, representing this great party, Reform UK, with immediate effect. Now, I haven't taken this decision lightly, and I know there'll be some people, particularly in Fareham and Waterlooville Conservatives, who will feel sad and disappointed by this. I will explain my reasons in full later on today. But right now, I want to talk about you, our veterans, because you deserve to be heard. Now, in Fareham and Waterlooville, from the beaches of Portchester, you can look across the water at the naval dockyards in Portsmouth. And we are very, very proud of our Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carriers in Pompey. Anyone here from Pompey today? Very good. Good men. Up the Pompey. And indeed, Waterlooville gets its name from that famous victory over Napoleon, because returning soldiers would stop in my constituency to celebrate with a pint on their way home. And over the last decade of being a Member of Parliament, I've had the deep honour of meeting many of our brave servicemen and women around the world. I visited our Royal Marines in the Arctic Circle, and we camped out overnight in sub-zero temperatures in the depths of the Norwegian forest. I'm brave, but I didn't do the ice jump. I will confess I didn't do the ice jump. I'm brave, but I'm not that brave. I've watched our soldiers train on the Canadian prairie in Alberta, and I've met our new recruits from HMS Collingwood, brimming with hope and pride and courage. And in Fareham and Waterlooville itself, there are thousands of veterans. Sometimes there are roads where almost every house has someone who has served. And whether it's a new apprentice or a D-Day veteran, a veteran from Afghan or from the Falklands, I have learnt so much from you. And I've learnt one big lesson, and it's this, that the reality of service life bears no resemblance to the rhetoric. Because the truth is this, for all the warm words and the symbolic gestures, we have failed our veterans. I've met too many veterans whose housing just isn't good enough. Why? Because MOD is broken, DIO doesn't work, and service family accommodation is not good enough. I've met too many veterans who can't get the medical treatment that they deserve for injuries that they sustained in service. For those who gave us their everything, we've left to fight alone. It's a national disgrace. Why? Why has this happened? Because over the last decade, defence spending has been hollowed out. Our armed forces stand at the smallest number in 200 years. Our equipment is inadequate. Our aircraft carriers don't even have enough aircraft or destroyers. Our resilience is depleted. We can't even defend ourselves. What kind of country is that? And the biggest scandal of all, the relentless pursuit of our brave servicemen through the courts decades after their duty has been done. The biggest scandal. Men who fought terrorism, men who protected us from the IRA, hounded through the courts on spurious prosecutions for doing their duty. It's one of the biggest scandals of our nation. How has it been allowed to happen? Because of the European Convention on Human Rights. The ECHR. The ECHR is a system whereby the human rights of terrorists have become more important than your human rights. It's a system where IRA families can claim compensation and British soldiers must be prosecuted for murder. It's a system of law which has been weaponized by our enemies against our brave. Now, when I was Attorney General 6 years ago, I worked on the law to protect our veterans. But the truth is, it was virtually impossible because of the ECHR. And so, the following year, in 2022, I broke ranks. And I became the first Conservative minister to say publicly what needed to be said. That the United Kingdom must withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. End the madness. Stand up for our soldiers. Leave our veterans in peace. And what did the Conservative Party say? My Conservative ministerial colleagues. They said, no, we can't do that. It's too divisive. It's too difficult, too dangerous. Not the right time. You see, even those who are leading the Conservative Party today failed to understand what needed to be done, and they opposed me. You see, when it mattered, when we had the majority, when we had the power, indeed when we had the duty, the Conservative Party utterly failed to do the right thing for the British people. I didn't give up. The following year, when I was Home Secretary, I tried again. This time, I pleaded personally with the Prime Minister himself. What did he do? He ignored me, then he blocked me, and then he sacked me. All the while, promising to the British people that he would do whatever it takes to stop the boats and protect our veterans. Saying one thing in public, doing the total opposite in private. And as my friend Robert Jenrick has found, that's the great tragedy with the Conservative Party. Great speeches, good slogans, but when the cameras are off, when the doors are shut, and when they're sat behind that table making the difficult decisions for the country, they fold. When push comes to shove, they go AWOL. No courage, no backbone, no resolve. Even today, their so-called promise to leave the ECHR. It's a lie. It's a lie. Half of the Conservative MPs are dead against it. Another group don't even understand it. And a mere handful sincerely believe that it's the right thing to do. So I'm calling time. I'm calling time on Tory betrayal. I'm calling time on Tory lies. I'm calling time on a party that keeps making promises with zero intention of keeping them. I tried my best. I tried privately, politely, nicely. I can be nice. They ignored me. Then I tried loudly and forcefully, and then they sacked me and punished me for telling the truth. You see, the truth is, there is no way on earth that the Conservative Party will ever take the United Kingdom out of the ECHR, and there is no way on earth it will ever keep its promises to you. Enough is enough. Enough of this political delusion. Enough of this political lies. Enough of these political chameleons who say one thing to one group and then another thing to another group. The country is crying out for authentic leadership, credible leadership, leadership that it can trust. And you know, do you know how you can tell if someone is authentic and credible? You ask yourself, have they been consistent? And there is only one man in British politics who has been courageously consistent for his country, and that man is Nigel Farage. It's true. It's true. When the establishment has tried to shut him down, they've tried to destroy him, they've tried to vilify him and smear him, he has kept standing up and speaking for you, speaking the truth, speaking our fears, saying what we've all needed to hear. He's not backed down in the face of vicious onslaught, vicious vitriol and backlash. When Nigel Farage said that the country was at breaking point because immigration was out of control, the establishment tried to smear him and demonize him. But he was proven right, and the British people backed him. When Nigel Farage said that the EU was destroying democracy, the government tried to shut him down. But he was proven right, and the British people backed him. And today, when Nigel Farage is the only political leader with the backbone to say that Britain is broken and Reform UK will fix it, the mainstream parties are doing everything they can to destroy him. But you know what? They won't do it. Because Nigel Farage is right, and the British people are backing him.
Thank you.
Nigel knows about courage. You know about courage. Courage means not flinching under pressure. Courage means facing down your opponent and carrying on with steadfast determination. Courage means overcoming adversity with strength. Courage means keeping your promises to your country. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, it's the honour of my life to join your team today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very good. Well, what about that? What about that? And a big boost for Veterans for Reform and for the party as a whole. And she was right about one thing. We have to remove the barriers. We have to remove the barriers to the right things being done. And I'm afraid, whatever the good intentions of the European Convention on Human Rights over 3/4 of a century ago, it is no longer appropriate for the 21st century world. We will remove the barriers to justice for our veterans and much else by leaving the ECHR. But today isn't just about stopping prosecutions and pardoning people. There is something much deeper that matters. How can it be that somebody who enters our country illegally, having destroyed their identity documents, is a higher priority for housing than a former serviceman or woman who has fallen on hard times? It's outrageous, it's wrong, and it's time to start putting our own people and our own veterans community first. And we must do that. And we must do that. And we will do that. I want to thank you all for coming here today. Well done for getting in early for the tickets, because there's a big waiting list. It's been a great event, an uplifting event, and I know that much of what was said earlier, I could sense watching from the gallery. There was some pretty deep emotion in the room too. And I want, just before we end, I know that many of you know what loss is. You've seen it on your active service, and so I would like to end what I think has been a very, very important event. If you'd all stand, please, and join me in a minute's silence for the fallen. And I'll leave you with our piper. Thank you very much indeed.
1 2 1 2 1.
I've been seeing her like once in a month now. Really? She's like on the cave of the Sorry. What, sorry? Okay. Or anyone? No, just because the whole pool is watching me, so I don't want to be standing nowhere.
How tall is it?
Can I put this a little bit lower? Is that right? It's gonna catch the sound for sure. Because this is directional, so... Yeah. It's just to don't have it in the shot because maybe I need to come up or down and I'm not sure because he's quite taller than me.
Yeah.
He's basically like this.
Okay.
Maybe here or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, you've got to get with it. Well, there you are. Yeah, so. Careful, be careful.
Yeah, Catherine, be careful, please. And with the light as well, because if it falls on you, you're going to be hard. Yeah, so literally what just told you. Sorry. No, it's for you. If it falls on you, it's going to be painful. I'm worried about... That's all right. That's okay.
Yeah, don't move.
Is that okay for you?
As if you're to attention.
You just want to do these after glasses. They're on my phone and I can't read them.
I'm the same, sadly.
Okay. When you are ready, I am.
Okay, are you right?
Yeah. Can you speak to the microphone?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There you go. Perfect. Is that right for you? Yep. Go. Ready?
Are you ready?
Yep.
Nigel Farage, you just welcomed former Conservative Home Secretary Suella Braverman to reform. That's 3 Conservative MPs in the last week and a half. You're a party of recycled Tories.
Well, we're a party that accepts talent. If you get people who we believe are talented, who will put their shoulder to the wheel, who will help us, but are also prepared to admit honestly the failings of the Conservative Party in 14 years in government, and particularly in the last term, provided they're prepared to put their hands up and say, I'm sorry, we got this badly wrong, they've got experience of being in the front line, which of course I lack, and many of my team lack, then they're very welcome. And I think it's very interesting. I mean, today, there are 2 big political stories. One of them is Suella Braverman joining Reform. The other, of course, is Andy Burnham being blocked from standing in the Denton and Gorton by-election. And that's the difference between Keir Starmer and myself. I'm welcoming talent in, and he's keeping talent out.
Well, we'll come to Andy Burnham in a second, but you talked about Britain being broken. But you're filling reform with the very people that broke it.
Well, the Conservative government did break it, absolutely. But you see, there are people like Robert Jenrick who resigned as a matter of principle. People like Suella Braverman who spoke out on ECHR, said we should leave, and was removed from her post. So we are taking people who tried their best to to fight the system at the time, and they admit they failed, and that's why they're here.
But can the public trust them, given their record in office? Are you not worried that this could come back to bite you?
Look, I'm not welcoming people like Priti Patel, who says she did nothing wrong, despite opening the doors to the biggest levels of immigration Britain ever saw. I'm not welcoming Boris Johnson. I'm not recognising those who were part of the problem and still refuse to accept it.
OK, on to Andy Burnham and that by-election now. Have you decided who will run for reform in Gorton and Denton by-election?
We haven't decided yet who the candidate is. Our applications closed last night, and I'll be looking at it this afternoon.
Do you think Andy Burnham not running makes it easier now for you to win it?
I think if Andy Burnham had run, he would have picked up an anti-Keir Starmer vote. You know, bear in mind, this is the most unpopular Prime Minister in living memory. There would have been a pro-Burnham, anti-Starmer vote. That won't be there anymore, and I think the anti-Starmer vote will come to us.
Richard Ty's been saying today that Labour's terrified of reform in Greater Manchester. That's why Andy Burnham was blocked from Parliament. But you have silenced some of your own dissenters, they have been, for example. So if you were Prime Minister Keir Starmer today, you'd make the same decision, surely?
Well, look, you know, they've made their decision for whatever reason. Yes, it's quite possible that Andy Burnham could have won the by-election, but that Labour could have lost the Greater Manchester mayoralty. That is quite possible. Look, you know, I'm very happy for people who have different points of view, as long as they're batting for the same team. We've had one or two difficulties over the last year. We've dealt with them.
But Andy Burnham has got better favourability ratings than just about any other politician. If he was Prime Minister, that would be hard for you.
He's not Prime Minister. He's not likely to be Prime Minister. He'll have to win a by-election and get back into Parliament. And I think this particular constituency probably offered him one of the best prospects he could possibly have had. So whatever side of the argument we're on, I think we're stuck with Keir Starmer for a period of time.
You've been talking about veterans and your pledges to them if you form a reform government. Trump obviously upset a lot of people last week about his comments made to troops in Afghanistan. Did he do the right thing to make that statement? Was he right to apologise?
There was no way Donald Trump ever meant the British. Ever. You know, and you talk to people in his team, and they're very, very pro this country. And our contribution in Afghanistan, pro rata, exactly matched that of America. The one thing I have picked up from Americans, not him, but other Americans, is their deep concern about what's happening to our special forces. These endless prosecutions, the use of the ECHR against British veterans. If we devalue our special forces, we make our relationship with America militarily weaker. And we've got to recognise that we are incapable of defending ourselves without American support.
There's a lot of anger in the United States right now about the way ICE agents are conducting themselves. 2 people shot dead in Minnesota. You will have seen the videos. What's your reaction? They are going too far, are they not? That man has been disarmed. He was shot in the head 10 times. He was no longer carrying a gun.
The fact that he was carrying a gun, of course, meant that he was a threat. Sorry?
You're allowed to carry a gun.
Yes, but you don't carry a gun to a protest. That's the point. If you're going to protest, you don't carry a gun, even if it's an open carry state. Look, it looks like ICE have gone way over the top. But I'm afraid every single year in America, we see examples of the police, of the authorities that go way too far. But because it's ICE, it's obviously much more controversial. And I sensed, coming out of the White House last night, they're pretty uncomfortable too.
And just finally, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, is suggesting that if you bring in your mass deportations to the United Kingdom, we could see similar scenes of violence and disorder. Has this given you pause at all? What's your response to what Sadiq Khan said?
You know, we do not routinely, as a country, give our police force, give our authority weapons unless there is an imminent risk of a terror attack. And when it comes to deportations, you know, the point is, if people are here illegally, they shouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. Now, you know, no one's pretending this will be easy. No one's pretending there won't be pushback. But it needs to happen because if it doesn't, you don't stop the flow of people continually coming here illegally. And overwhelmingly, the British public think, whilst we welcome people from other countries in the right numbers, illegal immigration has to stop. And it's very near the top of the public's concerns.
Nigel Farage, thank you.
Thank you. God, we covered some ground there.
Started to run
Oh, it's that time of year.
Sorry, thank you very much, Nigel.
Okay, I'm gonna confirm that everything is fine.
Let's see if they want me to do a live.
And then let's see.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Victoria.
I tried, I failed. Not very good at it, was I?
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Bye-bye. Hi, you got it all? Amazing. I'm gonna set up for my heat now, okay? I'm gonna set it up now for my heat because I got a heat with Catherine as well, so I'm gonna set up for that as well. Yeah, cool. Okay. Okay, see, can you stop on the pool, please? Okay, thank you. Bye, bye, bye.
Sorry? No, it wasn't televised live, but it will be televised later. That was for all of the broadcasters, so BBC, ITV, Sky, GB News. So you'll see bits of it played probably any time from now on for the rest of the day.
The speech was some of them live, I think.
Sorry, I thought you meant this. Yeah, a lot of it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of it was.
We thought you mean the interview that